So hopefully, if you weren't here last week, you need to go back and watch or listen to the message, because a cute little cub was mentioned, and it was referred to as our sin, right? And we cuddle, but when we look at this, all that cute little sin, it just keeps climbing right back and climbing right back. That just kept popping up in my news feed this week, and I was like, we need to use it this morning. And so keep that little video, that clip in your mind, because hopefully by the end we'll make another little simple application out of that cute little bear that creeps back up, and mama bear too, maybe this time. But my name is Pastor Rob. It's good to be here this morning. I'm looking around. You guys are pretty awesome. So let's start. We're looking at Matthew chapter 20. Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 through 6. Last week, Pastor Todd with that, one of the points was our good is not God's good. And we're kind of, this next thing, it flows right from that, from the good, what was his name? The good Samaritan, someone who was here last week, the rich young ruler who was good. The rich young ruler was good. He had his goodness didn't save him, right? And he kind of held on to some stuff. So this flows right into that, because we're going to talk about the labor. So if you turn to Matthew chapter 20, I'm going to read one quick verse before we get there, and I'll pray, and then we'll read that scripture. In 27, it said, "Then Peter said in reply, See, we have left everything and followed you. What then will we have?" All right. So I just want to start off with that idea. What then will we have? The disciples were asking this question, and then we lead into this section of Matthew chapter 20. I'm going to pray, and then we'll read those verses. Oh, Father, I come before you in Christ's name, and I thank you for this opportunity to be with you, to be with your people, Father. And as we look at your word, I pray that you speak through your word. I pray that you give us clarity. You give me clarity as we look at these verses, that you change our hearts and our minds and line them up with your will. Help us to understand your grace and your mercy and what you have done in each of our lives, and that we would respond appropriately as individuals and glorify you corporately. In Jesus' name, amen. So what will we have, they ask. So let's get to the scripture in verse 1. "For the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into the vineyard. And going out about the third hour, he saw others standing in the marketplace. And to them he said, 'You go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right I will give you.' So they went. Going out again the 6th hour and the 9th hour, he did the same. And about the 11th hour, he went out and found others standing, and he said to them, 'Why do you stand here idle all day?' They said to him, 'Because no one has hired us.' He said to them, 'You go into the vineyard too.' And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, 'Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last up to the first.' And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius. Now when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, 'These last worked only an hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat.' But he replied to them, 'Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last worker as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity? So the last will be first, and the first will be last. The last will be first, and the first will be last.'" If you have ever been to a church potluck, The guys getting at the back of the line, what's the one time they can quote scripture? Well, the last will be first and the first will be last. Well, next time if you're one step in front of them and they quote that, you could say you're misquoting it, because that has nothing to do with getting in the front of the line or line and getting someplace. Basically, that simply means we get there at the same time. So instead of a buffet line, it's kind of a buffet that's just, I don't know, it works somehow with God, but the last are first and the first are last. It's all at one time. So let's dig into this a little bit. In verse 1, the idea of the master going out to get the laborers for his vineyard is a common practice. It's not something that the master of the house didn't misplan his harvest or anything like that. He had plenty of workers for the year, but when it came time, he needed the day laborers. He needed to get some temp workers to get this job done. It wasn't a poor management on his part or anything like that. He was just hiring. Pretty typical. It's still typical today. There's temp workers, and if you go to some parts of the country, that there's still day laborers that you could pull up and guys would jump in your truck, right? The landowner, after agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into the vineyard. So there's a clear deal here, right? So if you could imagine the scene, the master of the house kind of talking to the guys coming around, oh, we need a job. And he goes, all right, what's the deal? They make a deal for a day labor, so they have a contract, they have some kind of thing. I don't think they signed anything, but it's just an understanding, and they go off to work in the field. The master of the house he's still in the marketplace. He's still wandering around, or he's still there, and he sees at the third hour, he saw others standing at the marketplace. And to them he said, you go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right, I will give you. So here he meets some more workers, some more guys, and he's sending them out into the vineyard. We don't know if I don't think that we can assume that he was like, oh, those guys aren't going to be enough. I need a few more. I think he was just there, and he was like, hey, you guys want to work too? And they were like, yeah. So there was a trust. There wasn't a contract there, but there was a trust. They were putting their faith in this guy. Maybe he had a good reputation. They were saying, hey, you could, I'll work for you. There was no discussion of a financial exchange, but I trust this landowner. I'm going to go work for him. So they went off into the field. So they went going again about the 6th hour, and the 9th hour, the guy did the same. So he kept checking wherever these guys would come and hang out, and there was more guys there, and he just kept sending them, hey, you want to work? He sent them to work. And this is where it gets interesting. So hopefully most of us have had a job at some point in our lives, or if you're young, maybe you do chores at home and you get paid a certain wage for doing certain things, but we should understand this idea of working and getting paid. So here we are at the 11th hour, right? So 12-hour day. We're at the 11th hour, and he comes in at the 11th hour. He went in and he found them standing. He said to them, why do you stand here all day? They said to him, because no one has hired us. And he said to them, you go into the vineyard too. Now, some people would say that maybe they were just lazy and they were hiding in the back, and, when the guy would come around, that they were just like, oh, I don't. But they were looking for work. They were looking to earn some money for the day. They were trying to survive. They weren't being lazy. They were just hired at the 11th hour. So here we come to verse. We got a little mixed up. They said to him, because you were hired, you go into the vineyard too. And verse 8. And when evening came, the owner said to the foreman, call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last up to the first. So this last first thing is coming up. Last up to the first. And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each one of them received a denarius. So what do you think these 11th hour guys were? They were probably pretty psyched. So a denarius, it was a day's wage. If we were to take that and kind of apply it to what a day's wage is here, if you go with the minimum wage, 10 to 11 bucks, it would be like 120 to 130 something, 40 something bucks for a day's wage, right? So these guys work 1 hour, and the foreman walks up to him and gives him a day's wage. It's kind of like, it made me think of if he's handing them out, and you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car. Good, there's no Oprah fans here. But I'm sure they were beyond blessed that they were getting a day's wage for working that 1 hour. But let's kind of also notice at this spot that Jesus specifically tells the foreman to pay the last first. I mean, there's really, if you think about it, there's no purpose for it. I mean, it would make total sense. I can only imagine the foreman going to the master of the house. Hey, master, I'll pay the guys, but look, these guys have been here for 12 hours. They want to get home. They miss their families. They're tired. They're like burnt from the sun. They just want to get home. Can I just pay? No. Last first, first last. There's a purpose for it. So imagine that scene. Imagine that scene as he's paying these guys. He pays the 11th hours guys first. Imagine the guys over, the 12-hour guys watching this. What? Dude. Maybe their first reaction was this. Maybe it was, dude, he's paying in D's, man, denarius. He's paying in D's. Maybe for 1 hour he gives, a whole day's wage. For 12 hours, I'm gonna get like $1,400 for a day's work. Dude, we're in. And then he goes to the next guy, denarius. The next guy, denarius. And he's coming to the guys that have worked their tails off for 12 hours, and he hands them what? A denarius, right? How would you feel? You'd feel a little slighted, wouldn't you? I would. I totally would feel like, come on, right? I mean, everybody else, like, they were only there. They weren't in the sun. They start to murmur, right? Murmuring and complaining. It's if you've been in a workplace, I think you may have heard murmuring before, right? Maybe it's by the coffee or water or whatever. I can't believe that they're wanting us to work. It was that. They started to murmur, and then they make a case. They go, okay, foreman, master, we work 12 hours. It would only make sense that we would get, if you gave them for 1 hour a denarius, it would only make sense. We worked hard. Like, see, my shirt's soaked with sweat. We worked hard. We should get more. And what's the response that the master gives them? Dude, we agreed on a denarius, man. That's in the contract. The deal that you made was a denarius. That's what's set up. So, that's kind of frustrating, isn't it? A little bit. It's just, so when we think about this whole story, it's just, if it was me, if I was in there, I probably would be like ready to just quit. That's it. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to school. But what about us? So we're going to take this idea and we want to kind of place it in our lives in today. But have you ever done this? Have you said, God, life's pretty hard right now. Bills are tight. Life's just hard. But I know if I do the right things, if I work hard, and if I follow you, if I love you, I know if I do all these things, you're gonna fill in the blank, right? I think it's not a stretch for most of us to think that we do kind of make that deal with God. We say, if I do all these things, if I fulfill these good things, that you'll kind of keep your end of the bargain, right? Because it's a good deal. The master says, "Am I not allowed to choose am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me, or do you begrudge my generosity? So the last will be first, and the first will be last." We have to remember that God. What is the generosity that's coming from God? If we're going to make a deal with him, I mean, he's someone that could keep a deal. He could keep a bargain. That's clear. So what I want to do is I want to take this and break it out to 3 different things with some ideas in it. The 3 things are the work, the pay, and the rest. And the first one we're going to look at is the work. So as we look at this idea of work, that's what's going on here. The master needs a job done. He goes out. So the first thing I want us to notice is that these were the master's fields. They were his vineyards to be working in, the place that the master owned. The place that the work is not to be, the place where we do the work is not to be complained about. But how many of us struggle with the job that we get? And don't just think like my actual day job, the thing that's putting food on the table, but even like as far as the things that God allows you to do. Think if we do want to please God, because remember, he's responding to something the disciples asked him. Where has God placed you? Right now, he's placed you guys at Friendship Baptist Church. What are the things that he's placed in your path to do? No matter what the field looks like, if it's something that's the greatest glamorous thing, the ministry to do, maybe it's something like that. Are you satisfied with it? Or do you want to say, no, I want to change it, I want to do this, I want to make it my field, but it's the master's field. We need to be diligent in the field that the master has placed us. Like we have opportunities with babies, with children, with youth, with women, with men, with elderly. Are you doubting the place that God has called you by coming here, by being part of either friendship or even in this area? Whenever I think of a situation like this, before I did this, I was a landscaper. I enjoyed landscaping, but it was a labor job. You would show up with a truck, you'd have the tools in the back, you'd unload the truck, you'd put the tools there, and then everybody kind of knew what to do. The job usually was laid out in the morning, and the tools were there. Now, I know if there were 5 guys in the job, and one guy, everybody puts the tools out, and the guys start doing their stuff, and one guy was sitting there like this. You'd be like, dude, pick up a shovel, get to work, right? We have to remember that these are God's field. He's placed us here. So to do something, if we just wait for the thing that we're going to like the most, I think we should enjoy the things that we do, the ways we serve, and the ways we serve God. But the field that He's placed you in, don't try to argue with Him about it. Just get to work. Serve Him. It's His field, not yours. It's His fruit. The harvest is not for the laborers to take credit for, right? So, if you think of a vineyard, the job was to take the grapes, do whatever with them, and then they happen there, or whatever. I don't know anything about grapes. But the idea is that they were not the laborers to own. When they picked them off, they didn't suddenly become their property, and they hold the responsibility of them until they went somewhere. They were that landowners from the very beginning. They were just given responsibility to do this labor task. So it's even as we do things as a church, as we do things as ministries, it's not so much to say my ministry, these are my people, this is mine. When we start to have that mindset, we're taking away from the master. We're taking away from the master who has sent us into this field to take in his harvest, not ours. But we do. It's not that we shouldn't be encouraged and we shouldn't want to kind of enjoy the glory that comes from working hard and do well. It is that, but we have to be careful not to hold on to it, to feel like we deserve it. Matthew 9:23. Just to give us kind of the idea of whose harvest it is. And we went through this. Matthew 9:38 said, "Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers." God, the Lord of the harvest, there's someone else that owns the fields that we're tilling and we're working in. There's someone else that owns them. They're not ours, and we need to be careful not to get distracted by it. So his work, the fields and the fruit belongs to the master of the house. The responsibility for the harvest lays on the master's shoulders. So if the workers don't show up, The master of the house still has to find workers or do the work himself. The work is going to happen despite us. We're just invited in. The question would be, is the scale fair? Is what we get fair? So Romans 6:23 says, "For the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus." So if you go back to that little kind of conversation about, hey, Jesus, we worked really hard, or hey, Foreman, we worked really hard. Guys that were here 1 hour got a denarius. I was thinking, we could work something out here. If we were to do the same idea, making a deal with God, trying to work some kind of deal out with God, and we said, God, I've worked hard for you. I was at church every Sunday, every Wednesday. I served I gave to when we start laying all those things out before God and saying, therefore I deserve He will say to us, wait a minute, did you get a little joy doing those things? Did you have fun doing those things? You received your reward. That was the deal you made with God. If we were to go back to him and say, I want more, I deserve more, give me justice, right? If we were to kind of think that would give me justice, God, he would say, you deserve death. Right? It's funny the things that anyway, I'm going to stop. That's all right. So when we think my work, my fruit, my stuff, we can develop an attitude of bitterness and a why me mentality. I've done all these things for you. I have not deserved this struggle. Why, Jesus? Why am I struggling with money, sickness, family issues? I don't deserve this. We have this. Have you ever had a day like this? And this happened to me recently. And I'm truly not bragging. I was just like, this just makes sense. It was a couple weeks ago. We're doing a lot of stuff at the soup kitchen. Get on board with that. Just go to our website and you can find the spot to sign up or check out the email that Pastor Todd sends out every week and click on the right things or I can help you later. But get involved with the soup kitchen. I had the opportunity a couple weeks to be down there for something else. And, soup kitchen, great guy, doing good things. I walk out of the soup kitchen, and where my car was parked, there was just older folks that were struggling to get their tire changed. I miraculously had some tools in my car, and I was like, let me help you. And I was like, Superman, and I'm helping them, and I helped them change their tire and put their tire back on. All right, you're good to go. And the guy reaches in his pocket, and he's handing me some money, and nice. And I'm like, oh no, I could not take money for what I've just done for you. This is my offering. And the gentleman was really nice. And I just said, hey, why don't you, if you go to church, I was just seeing, I was going to invite him to come to Friendship. I said, if you go to church, why don't you just go to your church and you can give it there? If not, I was going to tell them about ours, and I didn't get to that. And they were like, oh wow, really? That's so nice. Thank you. And they drove away. And I finished some other things. I helped somebody else out during the day. I don't want to keep going on the great stuff that I do. But I'm telling you, man, if I had the right to go like, I'm so awesome. If I had the right to do that, I would have had the right to do it. But this is the truth. I got home, and no joke, I don't know if I left the key. The car I have is funky. Sometimes you leave it wrong, and the battery dies. I was like, I go inside, and Angel's like, the washing machine is kind of, I don't know, there's like these letters on the thing, and you need to do the thing to make it work. And, I had to mess with that. And it was just all these little things. And at some point that day, I was just thinking, I definitely did this very thing. I was like, Jesus, do I need to remind you of this morning, of the things? But me, I was slipping into this idea that God needs to bless me because I was serving him well. That's a contract relationship. If he gives me what's just, and he answered, God, I deserve more. Oh yes, Rob, you deserve death. Right? We don't think about what we ask for. So let's keep going. I want to talk about the payment. Who doesn't like payday in this room, right? Everybody likes payday. That's usually, I remember my dad, it was always the happiest day. Thursday was payday. But the payment, the master could have given whatever he wanted, but the going rate was a denarius. All right, he was fair. The offering, the wage offered was what was offered. We get what we need. But here's the thing. We don't realize we need more until we see someone else. All right, so let's go back to the picture of the guys getting their money, right? So the 11-hour guys they get their denarius, right? And the guys over the early morning guys are like, "Ooh, they got a denarius, and he got a denarius." It's like we didn't realize it, we don't realize that we see what they got for 1 hour, and all of a sudden my denarius doesn't seem quite as nice as their denarius because I should have 12 denarius for my 12 hours. We get jealous, right? We see what someone else has, and then we're like, I want that too. I need that. All of a sudden, the thing that we're given that's sufficient for the day, that's equal, the thing that we're given that's equal for the day is not enough because we want what they have. God is really blessing him. Why? I was at the soup kitchen. I should be blessed too. Come on, right? This jealousy creeps in and it will rot us because we start looking to our left and our right and we're like, I need a little bit more. I need a little some of this. And it's constantly thinking, why not me? So-and-so is blessed all the time. How come they get to go and do everything? But I have to go to work every day. Why do they have that awesome car and I get this? Why do they get that brand new house and I struggle to pay my rent? And I'm not trying to minimize those problems or those issues or those things that we struggle with, but we have to be careful when we start thinking this way to God. Like, God, why don't you bless me? Because if we were to take what God has given us, the denarius, the grace that we need, we would realize that grace is enough. It is sufficient. Ephesians 2:8-10 says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this not of your own doing, it is the gift of God, not as a result of works, so no one may boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, for which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them." Grace is a gift. The minute we think we deserve it or we don't have enough, we're totally kind of destroying the whole idea of what grace is. We get exactly what we need. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in your weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly in my weakness, so the power of Christ may rest upon us." Guys, this is the idea that no matter what struggle it is that we have, the grace is enough to get us through that struggle. This was Paul saying this. Paul is like, everybody wants to be Paul. That tends to be a strong Christian. I want to be like Paul. I want to go plant church. I want to do this. And Paul's saying, you know what? I have the struggle, but God's grace is going to be enough to get me through this struggle. I don't think life was easy for him. So whatever we face, whatever it is, God's grace is going to be enough if we truly rest on his grace and not our deserving. I worked hard. I should be done with this problem. Everything should be taken care of. I should be fixed by now. God, you should have blessed this. That points back to having some kind of deal we've made with God instead of pointing that we've totally appreciated the grace that he gives us, sufficient for each day. So I would urge you, and I would urge me, that we need to stop trying to get full payment while we're here on earth. Because if we do that, the payment is death. So we need to stop whining about what other people have and responding to the grace that God gives us. It's a perfect and complete grace. When we realize that the work is his and the work is complete and perfect, we should rest. So this is the last thing. Entering this rest, it's true, and it's true peace. It's complete and it's true peace. So I mentioned my dad earlier, and I miss my dad a lot, but I have some fond memories of my dad working at the Torrington Company. I don't know if the Torrington Company was a needle and bearing company that was in Torrington. There's a good chance that those of us in this room, we may have had an aunt or an uncle or a father or a grandfather or known somebody from this area that worked there. I mean, it's my whole family. My aunts and uncles from back in the day worked in that. That's the reason that they were in Torrington. But it was a cool business, and it's gone. It's closed down. But I can remember picking up my dad there not every day, but once in a while with my mom. We had one car. And my dad, they would come around the side. I think it was Prospect Street we used to park on. There would be tons of people parked there waiting for whoever it was working. My dad would come out and he would have his time card in his front pocket, sticking out about yay high above his shop shirt. And it would have the old punch marks. If anybody's old enough to remember the kind of time cards that you would punch, you'd slide them in, and they would put a little dot in it, and they would put in some computer thing, or what they thought was a computer back in the day, and it would tell them how many hours they would work. But when my dad would come home, he would be tired. It was a long day for him, right? It was a lot of work. He went in real early, and he got about 3 or 4. And I always remember him getting out about 3 or 4 because it was like that supper time was, I felt like I would get home from school and it was time for supper. You know, Dad's done with work, you got to eat. And it was like, that was the rule in our house. Sometimes he was a little edgy, kind of from working hard all day and doing all the things he would do at work. But there was always something else. And I don't know if it's like this in your house now or in your families, but it was never done, right? You come home for work, you just want to rest, you just want to relax. But there's always, you know what? I need to fix I need to go clean my dad always had a project, something he was going to do, something he was going to remake. He would never just kind of rest. It was something bigger. I mean, maybe resting for him, I got to go hunting because he was going to fill the freezer. And, the freezer was like work. It was like, hey, if I could fill the freezer, I don't have to worry about work. It's this kind of thing. There was this idea it was a restlessness. He was never done. But we start to think, and I think we can tend to do this, that the rest, there's a completeness when we trust in God's grace. But we tend to slip into this idea that we got to do a little bit more, right? We got to work a little harder. I need to do a little bit more. We can approach our faith the same way. I need to do a little bit more for Jesus. I've been showing up on everything, but I think I could squeeze in this one more thing. Now, truly, I'm not trying to talk anybody out of serving like 110% and giving and doing as much as they can, but I don't want you to have the mentality of, I need to do a little bit more just to keep Jesus happy. I need to do a little bit more because I don't know if he still loves me. And I know he'll really love me if I show up for that other thing and that next thing, right? So I just want us to have that concern. The question is are you insecure about your faith? Do you start to doubt from time to time? I wonder if God really loves me. I mean, I've been serving him. I've been doing all these things. Does he really love me? I just need to do a little bit more. When we get his grace, when we understand it, when we fully embrace it, there's rest in that. It's literally, my watch, it's funny that if you use a Fitbit or some of the newer, they always have this button. It's like, it needs to tell us how to relax. You hit a button and it goes, breathe. Like, my watch tells me to breathe. I'm pretty sure I do it automatically most of the time. But it just gets you, breathe in, breathe out. The watch is telling me to do this so that I can relax. We use the craziest things to just take a break. But when we think of things like this in a spiritual context, in this context, in the line of the Bible and what God talks about in the grace and the fact that he went to the cross and the work is done there. And because of the cross, that our sin could be appeased, that it could be taken care of, it could be atoned for. The fact that he goes to the cross and he deals with all that stuff. That he freely gives us this grace. That denarius is enough. That piece of grace that he offers us is enough. But we want to work a little harder. Do a little bit more. We don't rest. And here's my fear. Here's my fear is that as much as we try to look like we haven't made a deal with God, we've made a deal with God. And that's not what he wants. When we get this, the joy comes, like, have you ever just hung out with someone who's like super relaxed and just chill about everything? Like, don't we all want to be like that? Our faith can be like that. When we know it's all on him and it's not on us, that's where we want to be. So let's go back to that cute little cub. All right? It's not a video, it's just a picture. Last week it was our sin. This week it's us. The cub was its mama's no matter what. Just think about that for a minute. That cub was its mama's. It's a big bear. But that cub was its mama's no matter what. No matter how hard it climbed, no matter how many times it fell, it was its mother's. Do you get it? You get the idea? Whether the cub made it back up the hill to its mom did not change the way each felt about another. It wasn't about the accomplishments of getting there. It wasn't about, look what I've done for God. It wasn't about, look at this mountain I've climbed. It was the mama being there. Are we trusting in our effort to get back to God? Am I trusting in my effort to serve God well to get back to him? No doubt that, the cub is cute. We're all cute. You're all cute. Right? But the mama bear is the important one. We should pursue God like this little cub to be with him. In God, we should be fulfilled. He knows when we're pursuing him or our own fame. He's enough. In God, we should feel contentment. We should feel rest. He is good. We should have peace that no matter what happens in this life, our relationship with God will stand even past this life. He is good. So remember that question that the disciples asked, what will we have? Right? They were the leaders at that time. They were the guys hanging with Jesus. And they just watched him kind of set that rich young ruler straight. And I bet as they listened to that, they were thinking, dude, we do a lot of that stuff he's talking about. If we're not, he's saying what? What will we have, Jesus? What about, it's a legitimate question. So this is what we have. We have God's grace. It's freely offered. Thing is, we choose what to do with that grace. We could just kind of absorb it and keep it to ourselves, or we could be givers and we could just give grace to those around us. We have God's generosity. I'm kind of harping on the 12-hour guys, but the 1-hour guys, they were blessed. We all have, even the denarius in each of their lives was God's generosity. You choose how to give. You choose how to take what you have and the things that God has allowed you to be a steward over and use. We have God's goodness. This picture, no matter what our life circumstance, no matter what the situation that we're in, no matter the struggle we're going through, he is good. I know it hurts sometimes, but each laborer was invited in to serve him, and that is a beautiful picture. Our responsibility is just to respond to his call. Trust in the work that Jesus has done. Let's pray. Father, we come as one people before you, thanking you for your goodness. Father, may we work tirelessly climbing the mountain, not to earn your favor, but just to dwell in it, to be with you, Father. May our desire just be to be with you. Father, you know the struggles that are here this morning in this building. Father, I pray that you do things in each of those struggles to give encouragement, whether it's meeting a need or just giving the endurance to get through that need, that you would do it in a way that brings you glory. Father, I pray for those that sit here this morning almost clueless, like, I don't get it. Father, please, I beg you, take the blinders off their eyes. Help them to see and know and experience your grace. Help them to know you. Father, those of us that sit here trying to make a deal with you, Father, help us to just embrace in the rest and the trust that comes with having your grace. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Thanks so much for joining us online today. We believe that the church isn't just a Sunday service, but it's a family where you belong. If it's your first time tuning in, we'd love to get you connected to our family. One of the best ways to do that is to fill out our online Connect card. Head on over to friendshipbc.com/connect. Let us know if we can help you in any way today by sending us a message on Facebook. Be sure to connect with us online on Facebook, Instagram, and our website to stay up to date with everything happening here at Friendship. Thanks for joining us.